So as Leah told you, before I was elected vice president, before I was elected United States Senator, I was elected Attorney General of the state of California, and I was a courtroom prosecutor before then. And in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women, fraudsters who ripped off consumers, cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, I know Donald Trump's type.
And considering that you got started under Willie Brown, I think it's pretty safe to say that we all know your type. Welcome to the program. Dana Loesch here with you, top of the second hour.
Quite literally
Under, yeah. I mean, that whenever you hear people say literally, usually that's not, they're wrong and they're using that word incorrectly. No, we literally mean literally. So she knows the type. She's the type of chick that accuses a guy falsely of rape. Remember when she accused Brett Kavanaugh of gang rape? Remember? I mean, what about when she was threatening broke parents in California? When she was threatening them with jail time so she could act like she was doing something about social policy. Anybody remember that? She championed a truancy law. Now she regrets it. She made her prosecutorial record the centerpiece of her previous presidential bid. This is over at governing. And she says she now has misgivings about a California law that she championed that brutally punished the parents of truant school kids. And I mean, it was pretty bad. She issued citations to parents whose kids missed school. None of them were put in jail. She called it a public safety issue. She told one crowd at a speech, she goes, "I have a huge stick," is what she said. Like, she actually said that. Golly. So, I'm just saying, she's not a middle of the road Democrat. And a lot of them, they tried during her presidential bid, they were trying to sort of portray her as that. But her past is coming back to haunt her. I mean, she threw a lot of people into jail. She had so many prosecutorial abuses. She abused her office in ways that, she had said that it should never be done. I mean, there's all kinds of stories about this. I'm like looking at some of just what we have. She had a very polarizing record. In 2010, she got in a lot of trouble with the California Superior Court judge who said that she had violated her defendant's rights because she was covering up information about a drug lab technician. And the judge concluded that the prosecutors that were working in her office, they did not fulfill their constitutional duty of telling the defense attorneys about, these witnesses that could actually challenge their credibility. And so she had over 600 cases that were dismissed because she was withholding evidence. Why did Alec Baldwin's case get thrown out? Because the state withheld evidence. She was going after people and withholding evidence. Now, I absolutely loathe Alec Baldwin. I think he's a POS and he's killed people. But the state can't withhold evidence. And I don't even think that this was actually germane to the case. That's a whole other topic. But the state's not supposed to withhold evidence. And this actually had to do with the culpability of, some of these cases. So she had 600 cases that were dismissed as a result of it. When she was AG, she fought a judge's decision because they wanted to remove the Orange County DA's office from a death penalty trial because evidence emerged that there had been this snitch program that the sheriff's department had been operating, and they said that tons of murder trials. They said, in fact, it was a dozen criminal cases, many of them murder trials, that were tainted as a result of all of this. She went the Moonlight Fire case. So in 2007, a wildfire burned about 65,000 acres in the California Sierras. And they had the California Department of Forestry and Fire Protection. They led this, their lead investigator. So they had a wildfire investigator lied about how the fire got started. Where did it start? How did it get started? And he destroyed all of the notes that he made during his investigation. And he falsified a lot of witness statements and a lot of the stuff in his report. And he was trying to blame private landowners. And the way that she handled this case, they said that California Superior Court Judge Leslie Nichols looked at the case and found that the investigatory and discovery abuses were so pervasive, via the Post, and egregious and corrupt and tainted that they had to terminate the CAL FIRE's actions and they had to sanction them. And they said that they're never going to be able to get a fair trial because of all of this, and that they had landowners involved. Harris would not investigate it. She was refusing to investigate it, and she kept trying to make up excuses as to why she couldn't bring the power of her office, even though landowners were being targeted and having things falsified to pin the responsibility on them for this, as opposed to, actually, what, I mean, it was a group of, they said that it had nothing to do with private landowners. I mean, this was, CAL FIRE, apparently. They were trying to get the state off the hook for any kind of culpability and blame private landowners that had nothing to do with the wildfire. And Harris was on the side of the state, and she was held by way of not investigating and doing her job responsibly, as she swore an oath to constitutionally fulfill. That she was actually depriving these people of due process because they were being targeted by the state, and she was doing nothing to stop it. It was unbelievable. I mean, this goes on and on and on. She kept saying, "Oh, I couldn't do it because I have an ethical conflict because I represent them in this other lawsuit, so I can't invest it." And that wasn't true, and she got hit by a judge for that. She is so corrupt. This is like Hillary Clinton levels of judicial corruption. It's pretty bad. It is pretty bad. I mean, remember David Daleiden? We had him on the program. Do you remember the Planned Parenthood? This was back, when was this? This was a few years ago. This is when Obama was still president. She was AG. She wasn't even a senator at that time. David Daleiden, who was an independent journalist who also is pro-life, he did an investigation of Planned Parenthood and a tip that he had received from a number of workers in these clinics, and one of them was in the Houston clinic. And they were telling them that Planned Parenthood was actually harvesting aborted infants' organs and selling them. And it sounded so insane. I mean, he was on the show before. David Daleiden couldn't even believe it. And so he and his crew went undercover, and they got all of these at various different clinics, actual Planned Parenthood executives and workers on camera, on record. You all remember this, talking about how exactly they took the body parts and organs of aborted infants and they would sell them. They would actually sell them for medical research or whatever. They would sell them. And it was against the law to do that. And they made a lot of money doing it. And when this story came out, Kamala Harris was the attorney general at the time in California. She had his home raided. She took every computer that he had, and she tried to jail him for life. She tried to throw him in prison and throw away the key. And then, as a senator, which she was running for Senate, she was getting ready to transition from AG to Senate during this time. She was working with Planned Parenthood to actually write legislation that would remove your ability to do things like this and point out the atrocities of a taxpayer-funded entity like this. I mean, she is an absolute tyrant. She has no understanding. She has no concept of the rule of law. And she is completely fine with using her office to go after people like David Daleiden. I mean, that case against him was insane. And it's not surprising that, she ran her border czar job in that way. See, talking about stuff like this, did she get fast tracked because of DEI? Hell yes, she did. Anyone saying otherwise is a moron. That's just an absolute fact. It is when you use the cards of feminism and parlay that into professional advancement, and then you get on your high horse and act shocked and criticize people who point out that you indeed did use these traits, and then you demonize these traits in your new public policy. That's just asinine. You can't sit here and tell us we can't talk about what you absolutely did. We're not going to, you don't make the rules for me. They don't make the rules for you. So this, I mean, she's a tyrant, an absolute zealot, completely. She thinks also she wants to eliminate all private health care plans. Remember, she's called for this. She wants taxpayers to provide health insurance plans to people who entered illegally. That's also a real thing. I mean, we could sit here and talk about this all day. She is she's a Marxist. She subscribes to Marxist theory. Remember when she was urging her supporters, she was advertising and contributing to a bail fund that was paying for the bond of all of the people who were burning down neighborhoods? And some of them were very, very, very criminally active even before. I mean, there were rapists. You know that, right? There were rapists that she secured the bond for that were involved in all of this stuff. There's tons of news articles about it. It's hidden on this thing that they call the internet. And she went out there and she was talking about defunding the police. She pushed this in 2020. She was all about moving funds that taxpayers had voted on from police to welfare. She wanted to slash the budget for law enforcement. She was trying to do that as a way to make amends for her putting everybody in jail as AG in California. I mean, it's crazy. She had once said, she was once asked if people like the Boston Marathon bomber, if they are on death row, should people like the Boston Marathon bomber be able to vote? And she goes, well, I think we should have that conversation. That guy was he even here legally? Just crazy. Remember when she went out there and said, Juicy Sommelier, that it was an attempted lynching? And that tweet's still up, by the way. She said, quote, this was an attempted modern day lynching. No one should have to fear for their life because of their sexuality or the color of their skin. We must confront this hate. Yeah. Juicy Sommelier. Remember him? Mm-hmm.